Alright, it's about time we do another Stu video here on the channel. It's been a little while since we talked about Stu here, so let's discuss what his motive could possibly be for Scream 7.
Certain rules! Push the laws and you end up dead.
This is the moment when the supposedly dead killer comes back to life.
Not in my movie.
Surprise, Sydney.
He's gone mad.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
A very simple formula!
You want to play psycho killer?
Everybody's a suspect!
No, please don't kill me, Mr. Ghostface. I want to be in the sequel.
I'll be right back!
Okay, I think it's gonna go something like this.
I'm Pamela, welcome back to the channel. So if you've been around on my channel for a while, then you know that I am a Stu believer. I believe he is alive and will be the main Ghostface for Scream 7. I do think he is the leader of this massive Ghostface cult, so I think some of the other characters in Scream 7 will be Ghostfaces as well, a part of his cult. But what is Stu's motive? What is his reason for doing all of this? Why is he finally back after 30 years going after Sydney? So my initial thought all of these years has been that his motive is simply just revenge. He wants revenge on Sydney for, you know, foiling his plan back in '96, almost killing him. And I do think that is ultimately still true. I do think that will be a part of his motive, but I did a live stream the other day, and shout out to Destin from Destination Station. He gave me this idea for Stu's motive. If you are not already subscribed to Destin over at Destination Station, definitely go give him a follow. He has some great horror movie content and Scream content. But he gave me this idea for what Stu's motive could be. And what if his motive is that he actually wants to get caught this time around? So it's sort of similar to Mickey's motive from Scream 2. As you know, Mickey wanted to get caught and go to trial. And I do think that is a pretty interesting motive, and I do think it could make a lot of sense for Stu. So in my opinion, I feel like Billy Loomis gets most of the credit for what went down in '96. I feel like Stu gets overlooked. People sort of consider Billy to be, you know, the mastermind behind the original Woodsboro murders, and a lot of people in real life, in the fandom, and in the Scream universe, the characters, consider Stu to sort of be a follower and Billy's lapdog.
You're such a little lapdog.
And I have talked about this in a lot of past videos where I do think Stu played a bigger role in the original events rather than just being a follower. Obviously, Stu was sort of like the goofy partner. He was this goofy guy, but I honestly think he is very smart. He had a lot of ideas. It was his idea to frame Neil Prescott. Obviously, the showdown in the final act of the first movie takes place at his house, so I do think that he played a pretty significant role in masterminding the whole massacre. And if you notice, in most of the sequels, he sort of gets overlooked, especially in these newer sequels. In Screams 5 and 6, this is something that we have talked about extensively here on the channel in past videos and during live streams. Characters in these newer sequels seem to forget who Stu even is, and I think that that pisses Stu off. In Scream 5's opening scene with Tara Carpenter, she's on the phone with Ghostface, who I do think is actually Stu on the phone with her. There are several clues that we're not necessarily going to get into in this video. I will try to link my past video on this if you want to check it out. It'll be down below in the description. But Tara forgets to mention Stu. So when she's on the phone with Ghostface and Ghostface is quizzing her on, you know, Stab movie trivia, he says, "Who was the killer in Stab 1?" And she says it's Billy Loomis, and she gets it wrong. Ghostface says, "Wrong, it was Billy Loomis and Stu Macher." And, you know, Ghostface sort of sounds angry when he says this, because if it is Stu, like I think it is, he's angry that he, you know, isn't getting the credit that he deserves. So that is just one example of Stu sort of getting forgotten, not getting the credit that he might feel he deserves. Same movie, Scream 5, Liv doesn't know who Stu is when the whole gang is, you know, in the scene with Mindy's rules talking about what's going on. Liv says, "Who's Stu Macher?" So yet another example of Stu sort of getting erased from the story. Same movie, Scream 5. Sydney and Gale are in the car together. Gale says, "I started all of this," and Sydney says, "No, you didn't. Billy Loomis started all of this." So as I said, in real life and in the Scream universe, Billy Loomis seems to get all of the credit for what went down. Even like with Richie Kirsch, he seems to idolize Billy rather than Stu. And the whole storyline with Sam Carpenter obviously focuses on Billy because he's her father, but you know, there's no real focus on Stu. And I could definitely see that pissing Stu off. So what if his motive for Scream 7 is to actually get caught, to finally get the recognition that he probably believes that he deserves? What if he wants to go to trial? And what if we see that happen in Scream 8? So you guys know, I do think Scream 7 is going to end on a cliffhanger, which was always kind of Kevin Williamson's vision that he never got to carry out in the past. So now that he is finally directing a movie, I think it might be time for him to carry out that vision. Not only have we never had a cliffhanger before, but we've never had a Ghostface survive the events of their movie and carry over into the next sequel. And I think they were initially trying to do that with Scream 6. There is like an early draft of Scream 6 where Quinn was going to survive and then go to jail. And in Scream 7, they were gonna have some of the characters like go talk to her in jail. So what if they actually use that idea for Stu? Scream 7 ends on a cliffhanger. Stu survives yet again and gets caught and, you know, goes to jail, goes to trial. We get to have Matthew Lillard in another Scream movie with Scream 8, and we get to see him finally getting the credit that he deserves. I think that would be insane. That would be something so fresh and new for the franchise. Obviously something we've never seen before. What if his motive is a desire to get caught, not out of guilt or remorse, but to finally claim the recognition he feels he deserves? He probably feels resentment of Billy's overshadowing legacy. I think a lot of people assume that Stu's reason for participating in the original murders is like very simplistic, while Billy's motive is rooted in personal vengeance, you know, blaming Sydney's mother for the destruction of his family. Stu's reasoning is less defined, I guess. He, you know, states that it's peer pressure.
Stu, what's your motive? Billy's got one, the police are on their way. What are you gonna tell them?
Peer pressure.
And like that combined with his sort of erratic behavior has led many fans to view Stu as like, I don't know, this secondary figure and sort of a follower rather than a mastermind. And I even think within the Stab franchise, within Scream, it sort of further cements this perception of Billy as the primary antagonist, and I feel like it focuses more on Billy rather than Stu, often sidelining or downplaying Stu's contributions. And I do think that Stu's 30 years in hiding would likely have been marked by growing resentment. Resentment towards Billy, resentment towards, you know, people out there who consider Billy to be the mastermind. I do feel like Billy's name sort of became synonymous with the Ghostface legend, while Stu's role faded into obscurity and sort of remembered more as comic relief than like a true architect of the killings. And I think this lack of recognition would sting for someone like Stu. Stu is sort of like this extrovert, and I think his personality sort of thrives on attention and chaos. And his motive for Scream 7 could be driven by this need to rewrite the narrative, to prove that he was not just Billy's sidekick, but this key player who also deserves the spotlight. So unlike previous Ghostface killers who typically want to evade being captured to continue their schemes and exact revenge, Stu's motive could hinge on this desire to be caught. For Stu, being apprehended would not be a failure, but a deliberate step towards achieving infamy. In the original film, Stu and Billy planned to frame Neil Prescott, Sydney's father, and emerge as, you know, these survivors. basking in the public's sympathy and attention. And I think this craving for notoriety sort of aligns with Stu's theatrical personality. So if he returns in Scream 7 alive, like I fully believe he will, Stu could be orchestrating a new killing spree designed to draw attention to himself, culminating in his capture so that the world finally acknowledges his role in the original murders. And I do think this motive would fit pretty seamlessly into Scream's meta commentary on fame and media. You know, in an era dominated by true crime documentaries, podcasts, and social media, Stu could see his arrest as a way to cement his legacy. By confessing to his crimes, you know, from the past and the present, he could seize control of the narrative, which would ensure that his name is no longer overshadowed by Billy's. And the act of getting caught would be his ultimate performance, a chance to take center stage and reveal the full extent of what he's capable of, which was underestimated by both his victims and the audience. I think a key component of Stu's motive would likely be his resentment towards Billy Loomis, whose legacy has grown almost mythic in the Scream universe. In Screams 5 and 6, Billy's influence on everything that's happened since the original has only grown even larger. I mean, I think Stu's resentment could also extend to this new generation of killers and survivors. I think the Scream franchise has seen multiple ghost faces, like I said earlier, sort of like Richie, who idolize Billy or seek to emulate his plan. Stu, feeling erased from the narrative, might target these copycats to prove that he is the true heir to the Ghostface mantle. And his new killings could be designed to draw out Sidney and Gale and, you know, the twins and these new characters, forcing them to confront the original killer that they underestimated. And by getting caught, Stu would ensure that his name is etched into the franchise's history, no longer overshadowed by Billy or dismissed as a mere accomplice. So yeah, I'm thinking his motive might be to actually get caught to go down in history. I do think part of his motive, like I said earlier, is simply just good old-fashioned revenge.
Good old-fashioned revenge.
Revenge on Sidney for almost killing him, for foiling his original plan. But I think it would be so interesting if a big part of his motive could be actually wanting to get caught. Like I said, similar to Mickey's motive in Scream 2, which I think is a pretty unique motive that should kind of be explored a little further and actually have it happen this time. Obviously, Mickey, you know, never went to trial the way that he wanted to.
Oh, Mickey, there's not going to be a trial.
But to see it actually happen this time with Stu, one of the original killers, I think would be incredible and something fresh and exciting for the franchise. You know, we're 7 movies in. Hopefully by the time we see the whole trial and everything play out, that'll be in Scream 8. So at that point, 8 movies in, we gotta do something new, something that we've never seen before, really. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Leave a comment down below. What are your thoughts on this idea? Again, shout out to Destin from Destination Station for giving me this idea in one of my live streams from the other day. But yeah, leave a comment, let me know your thoughts, give this video a like if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel if you're new here because definitely going to be doing some more Scream 7 theories and predictions as we get closer to the release of Scream 7. We're roughly 240 days away from Scream 7. By the time I get this video up, it might be like 239, but you know, it'll be here before we know it. Please also go follow me over on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram, and I will be right back.